every week the invocations are channeled, and we're like everyone else here. We have real life Reiki going on, and busyness, and all the different things that we have. And so, we definitely have like a content calendar, and we think in advance about what we're hearing people need and how to use Reiki for what we need. And it's so commonly, of course, the same things, even though it's all different, but kind of tapping into that energy that is. And of course, right now it's such a busy time of year. So it's always interesting to listen to the invocations because they're always channeled, and I never know where they're going to come through. And Robyn channels them, and same thing, she never knows what's coming through. And so today was really interesting to hear how much, like, I felt like the invocation was so practical. It really went into whatever that is. Sometimes practicality can be doing nothing. Like that's the most efficient thing you can do, is to do nothing. And I know that we have a lot of people here that are, it's nighttime and you're heading to bed. So this is relevant to you too, however that is. But sometimes I know for myself, doing nothing is what is the most efficient to do. And at the same time, on a day like today, I have a huge list. And the topic, and Robyn's going to go ahead and take over and talk about it, but the topic today that we thought we would talk about is defining your goals and aspirations. And I think that you can listen to that topic from so many perspectives. And Reiki has a kind of a unique way of looking at that topic. Like goals and aspirations could be very, linear, and I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And then we have Reiki energy that comes in and says, well, maybe today is the best day to daydream. Maybe today is the best day to look at the in-depth things that are goals and aspirations. So it was interesting to me the way the invocation came in, that it came in, I know what it was now, because a lot of times I don't remember. Imagination came in to really like activate your authentic imagination, and how that is where the invocation went to help with defining your goals and aspirations. So anyway, I'm going to contemplate that, and I can tell I'm very altered and kind of in very circular thought. So Robyn, you had some definite thoughts around this, and so.
Yeah. Well, first of all, hi, everybody. And it is 12/12 today. So that's always an auspicious day. Mercury went retrograde. And also tomorrow is the new moon in Sagittarius. So we kind of have some big stuff going on. Maybe not the best, or maybe it is the best day for an electrician to come to your house. I'm not sure. Anyways, and then as far as announcements are concerned, we have our Next Step Reiki registration is open, and it is open through January 15th. We have animal Reiki classes at the end of January, and then Colleen has human Reiki, just regular Reiki, in February. You can go to reikilifestyle.com to listen to that or to look at all of that. So yeah, that's interesting, Colleen, that imagination came in the invocation, because that's actually not what I was kind of looking at when I was thinking about the the kind of the talk with this, what was coming through around goals and aspirations. So it's interesting because I had a session recently that was talking about this, what am I going to do? This person's cycle was changing in a big way. And that's another piece of this, is that we can have goals and aspirations in different cycles that we have. And when I mean cycles, I mean cycles of life. They can be the large cycles of life, such as birth and death, and literally, but also figuratively, new jobs or marriage or ending of those things, retirement, so we have these kind of cycles of life that we have. And when we come to these cycles, we can be in an abundance of goals and aspirations, or we can be in the opposite of that, a lack of kind of knowing where to go next. And both places can be challenging to navigate. And in the session recently, what it was showing was that as one cycle was ending and the next cycle was beginning, there were an overabundance of, well, what am I going to do next? What, now it was the subject of retirement. What am I going to do next? And how do I navigate this giant shift here? And that was just one example, because it kind of gives you the idea of all the things that you want to do, and yet navigating this giant change in your life, which, I'm not there, but I know people talk about, and I've supported people with Reiki and in that idea. And that there's so many potential options. It's like, where do I start? What am I going to do? What is, all of those kinds of things that can be completely, almost overwhelming. How do I plan for this? What do I do for this? What am I going to do? What sounds good? And it was that imagination piece that kind of was the forefront of this, of, well, allow yourself to go into the daydreaming, allow yourself to be there for a minute of all of the possibilities. I know for me, when I get into these places of goals and aspirations, it really comes into my creativity, right? That's where these kind of overabundance of ideas come in. And there's this idea of this creativity that comes in. And I have a hard time of deciding, where is my creative focus going to land in my goals, right? What am I going to create next? That could be for my job, that could be for my work, that could be for my personal life, in all different ways. And so it's that kind of imagination that can come through, that it might be this overabundance of ideas that are happening for you, and that allowing yourself to go into those for a moment was what it kind of showed. Allowing yourself to go into those for a moment, which does go into your imagination. It does go into this idea of all of the things, because what it showed was just allowing all of those possibilities to come through. It's like, so I don't have to hold them anymore. Oh, I want to do this and this and this, and travel here and there and here. And I am looking forward to this and this and this. And so if I can just get those out, if I can just go into that, allow it. It's like we talk about allowing ourselves to sit in the harder emotions, grief, anger, fear, those hard emotions. And it actually kind of showed of allow yourself to sit in the daydream for a minute, process that for a minute, so that you can not be holding it all in your mind and your body, in, the spiritual aspect of this. And then once you've sat in it for a moment, once you've kind of processed for a moment, it allows you to start going into the, more kind of, oh, maybe not this, maybe that when I sit in that, it doesn't feel as good in my body. So I am going to move in a different direction. I'm going to do this differently. But that was a really interesting piece of it. And so that is true for so many cycles when we're in an abundance of it. When we're in a lack of it, when we are not sure where to start or where to go next or our goals, is that can be another challenging place, of course. Where do I start next? Like, what do I do next? Maybe there's the opposite reaction of the example that I gave with like retirement. It's like, well, I don't have any of that going on. And so how do I move through that? What do I do? How do I even plan for it? Or what are my goals? And another thing that you can do for that is you can also sit within that for a minute and listen within that for a minute so that, it's not trying to reach into it as opposed to listen to the Reiki energy, listen to, however that comes through for you, however that comes into you. And what's really interesting is that a part of this is also about really listening to what success means to you. What's your authentic success? What are your authentic goals? And that's one place that Reiki can really help for you to go underneath that culturally created idea, that culturally created space of what success consciousness means. Because at any one point, we think of success as success in career, right? Success in either your business, your job, maybe success in like, how things look as far as like those kind of curated moments that we see on social media, the perfect house, the perfect life, the perfect family, the perfect job, all of those things that culture has told us what things look like for us. But success can look so much different for each of us. And really going underneath that culturally created self is really can help you to define that for yourself. And that's a place that Reiki can really help you to navigate. Also, at any one time, we might be navigating different areas of success. And it's funny when the imagination piece came in, Colleen, I was actually planning to talk about the one thing graph. And I was like, well, when the imagination piece came in, I was like, well, and I'll show it in just a minute. I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't talk about that and go a different direction. But that is from a book called The One Thing, and it's by Gary Keller. I'm gonna pull up the chart. It's by Gary Keller. They probably can't see you, Colleen. You'll have to talk. Give me just a moment, and then you'll have to talk to show the book. And I was like, all right, well, maybe that's not the direction this is going today. And then I'm in my mom's like spare office or my dad's office, and there's a ladder in here. And I look up, and at the top of the ladder it says Keller. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm supposed to talk about that. So go ahead, Colleen. Go ahead and talk and show them.
Okay, so this is the book, The One Thing, and this has been so helpful to me, just on a practical level. I talk about it in my article, Reiki Heals the Shoulds. And also we talk about it in our next step classes because it really helps clarify the area of focus. So, yeah, Robyn, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, because one of the things that I also that we talk about in our own life and that we talk about in here, we talk about in our classes is how practical Reiki can be. And it's not something that we always think about as as what Reiki can do for us, but it can be really practical in helping us clarify our different areas of our life. And Colleen and I use it for this very often. As you know, she said earlier about that it can help us. It may not be the solution, but it helps present solutions. I've had that, happen for me so often. And Colleen has had that happen to her. And there was somebody in the chat, Patty, you had shared how after a session with Danny, practical solutions came in. So it wasn't like Reiki fixed it. It did, in the long run, it did. But it wasn't like, okay, I had the session and it fixed my issue. But what it did do is it pointed to you, got you in the area of listening for your solutions to come in. So Reiki can be very, very practical. And this is a chart that helps us to define that, because sometimes it's hard to even define. But if you can go into the specific categories and ask for the definition of what you're looking for in this, in my spiritual life, in my physical health, in my personal life, it can help for you to be able to clarify that for you. And that is something else that Reiki does. So when we're talking about goals and aspirations, here in this center is just a clarifying question. This can change. You can put different clarifying questions in this. Although this is a helpful one, what's the one thing I can do such by doing it? Everything else will be easier or unnecessary. So this is a clarifying question, but you can put any clarifying question in here. So in this case, it's like, what does success consciousness look for me? My goals and aspirations look for me in my job. We'll use these circles because that's kind of how we think about it. In our, when we think about success consciousness, my job, my finances, my business. However, when you have other things, you have cycles going on in your life, success consciousness also relates to these other circles. Because if you have physical health issues happening for you, there's very little else that matters until those are resolved. Right? So what are my goals and aspirations? What does success consciousness look for me in my physical health? And this is where it comes to releasing that culturally created self around this, because this is success consciousness and it's just as equal as this success consciousness or this success consciousness for my business, finances, for my job. None of it happens without your physical health, right? And we think that when we're focusing on the success consciousness of our physical health, for example, that's when we can get into the shoulds. Because if we're focusing on that, then that means we're not focusing on job, finances. And when I say job, it can be job or business, job, career, business. So when we are focusing on our physical health and being in that success consciousness, we can get shoulds about not focusing it in our job or our finances. And that's where that can come into our cycles. That's the most important in that. For my spiritual life, maybe there's this, the spiritual aspect. You are in the cycle of needing to explore these really big concepts, like you are, navigating maybe the topic of death and dying, or you've had an awakening of some sort, or you took a Reiki class or Reiki master class, had a Reiki session and had such a profound experience that you now need to navigate this aspect of your spiritual life. However, that culturally created self can sometimes give you the shoulds, right? I mean, of course, we need to live in this world. I'm not saying that there's not the practicalities of having a job or business and having finances, but we think of that as the only piece of success consciousness. But spiritual life can be that, personal life, key relationships, those two things. Sometimes that does have to be the focus. Sometimes You have to work on your mental emotional state. Sometimes, maybe anxiety, things like that. Sometimes your key relationships, friendships, relationships, or even familial relationships, those can be the different cycles that you're in. And what is success consciousness? What are goals and aspirations look like that? Because that is a part of the process as well. And so that's where it can help with how Reiki can help with navigating all of this, because it's okay that success consciousness, it's okay that goals have to do with these categories as well. And it's okay if they're in the other side, sometimes it is your business or job or finances, sometimes it's the kind of more what we think of as success consciousness, what we think of as for goals and aspirations. But other times you're in a completely different cycle, and it's about releasing the shoulds for those, because success consciousness is in every aspect of our life. And what Reiki can really help us do is it helps us to release those ideas, and it helps us to also focus into the what's next with it. How do I navigate this? How do I what are the answers for me to help navigate this? And again, maybe it's Reiki that is doing the work, or I should say, rather, maybe it's Reiki that's solving it for you, and maybe it's showing you other solutions, or maybe it's doing a healing that is going to help you navigate it. Or when it comes down to the practicality, maybe it's going into something like this graph that is helping you to actually, write down something for each category, or not everybody writes it down, but listens to each category for each category. Because sometimes that's what we need, right? We just are like, I just need some organization in my head, or I just need something to tell me what to do. Like, what is my next step here? Like, I need something to tell me what to do. And that doesn't come from outside, although you might get a sign from outside, or you might hear a message from somebody outside of yourself that really resonates. And it's like, yes, that's it. That's still from your own inner guidance, from that own, soul, spirit, inner truth, inner power, even if it's hearing it from an outside perspective and it's resonating with you, that can help you again on that first step, that next step. So it's like you can have both sides of the spectrum. Other times you can be dialed in, you can be focused, you know exactly where you're going, you know exactly the path to get there, all of that. But I would say that in the other times when things are more convoluted, that's also where Reiki can really help. Helps in those practicalities. It helps in those healings. It helps in those revealings, those eureka moments that you need. And also ask it, practically ask it, what should I do next? Also know that the answer may not come in the self Reiki session or a session for another person. It might come when you're cooking or driving or in the shower. And so be, in that, you don't have to be in that state of listening all the time, because that's exhausting, but you can be in that kind of space of open awareness around it, so that you are so that you receive it and you hear it and you see it. I will say, though, that when we had the podcast with Patty Lane, she said that she directs Reiki to show her the signs 3 times. So I didn't know that you could do that. She'll get a sign and she's like, yeah, she's better at believing it now, but originally when she was really going through this process, she's like, nope, I needed the sign 3 times, and it would come to her in different ways outside of just her spiritual work. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. She's like, yeah, you can totally direct it. It's like, oh, good to know. So you could also, ask for Reiki to do that as well. So Colleen, do you have anything else?
Well, what I actually really want to say too is some of this whole topic came up through our podcast with Molly McCord, and we just posted that yesterday. It's on Reiki Lifestyle, both on the podcast channel and the YouTube channel. I think it's a great one to listen to. So she goes into kind of forecasting into 2024 and the cycles and energies. So it adds an additional layer to this topic, because I know for myself, kind of getting into all this mindset, because a lot of times we start this process with things like our, oh my gosh, my brain. Starting in January, begins with an R.
Pluto goes into Aquarius.
No, what we do in January when we set out our year resolutions.
Oh,
So I know many of you understand about the word recall thing. So
yeah.
word
I
recall.
just want to add to that. Somebody put into the chat. Success consciousness is also about healing. Healing. What did you say, Jess? And I know she's okay with me sharing her name because she said that in the past. Can also look like overcoming bad habits, personal growth, and healing generational traumas.
Yeah.
So,
And then Kingsley added, this resonates well with my concept of little successes and not waiting for huge strides first. So yeah, it's really helpful.
And everyone, there's so many resources out there around this as well. There's journeys, there's meditations. Patty talked about a session with Danny and how much that helped for her. And somebody else put in the chat that Taylor did an amazing new moon journey, because new moons are a great time to set goals and aspirations and explore that. That's on her YouTube, Taylor Norris Reiki. And, so sessions from others can be really helpful. Danny, she does sessions, and she does sessions like this for people, helping navigate that. And so that's something that you can do. And then there's a ton of free resources as well around these things that you can, because that is super helpful too. Sometimes we do have to have that outside help for it. So yeah, that's also something to remember. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is it. If you, go to reikilifestyle.com. Danny is Danny, which is DANNI at reikilifestyle.com for sessions. So, all right. I think that's it, Colleen, right?
And I just want to clarify too, because you mentioned Taylor, TaylorNorrisReiki.com. So you want to go to that for the meditation that she just posted.
All righty.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you next time